Hey y'all, today is a straight up self-sponsored review. I am going to be reviewing the Fenty Beauty Eavesdrop Blurring Skin Tint. I'm going to do this question and answer style. So I have a short list of the questions that I had about this product before I got it in my hot little hands. The questions are, what is the packaging like in person? Will the color work for me? What is the texture like? Is it liquid or is it creamy? What's the application process like? What's the finish and the look? What are the finish and the look like? And then how does it wear? And then obviously, you know, my overall thoughts. So I'm just gonna go through and answer those questions. If this is your first time to my channel, then welcome. I'm so glad you're here. My name is Hannah and I love beautiful things and I enjoy makeup quite a lot, but I try not to buy too much of it. I really don't wanna spend too much of my money on it. And so, you know, I'm trying to keep a sense of balance with my beauty content here on my channel. If that sounds good to you, I hope you will subscribe right now. Let's go ahead and get into the meat of the video. My bangs, y'all, they just keep getting longer and longer. And isn't this a fierce lip gloss? This is a new gloss that I'm actually not sure I'm allowed to talk about yet because I received it in PR in advance of the launch. So I'm not gonna say what it is on camera, but if I am allowed to share it by the time this video goes live, I'll link it in the description box. So far, I feel like it's one of my favorite lip glosses, if not kind of like the best lip gloss that I've ever tried. I'm really here for it. It's just so shiny. I feel like my lips are shining like lacquer right now. My cheeks are also kind of shining like lacquer. I can tell you what it is. It's also something I'm reviewing for a self-sponsored review, which is the Salt New York creams. So keep an eye out for that review coming soon. But let's get straight into talking about the Fenty. The product description says a lightweight, buildable, light to medium coverage skin tint that leaves skin looking blurred and smoothed in flexible shades for all. This product has been widely reviewed. Fenty products often are, and I understand why. It's a very exciting brand. And I do want to say right up front that I do have an affinity for Fenty. I love everything that this brand represents. I feel like it's maybe like the defining makeup brand of like this spate of about 5 years that we're in right now, because this brand really did change the expectations of the makeup industry. You know, like we now expect brands to be inclusive. There was like before Fenty dropped their initial range of foundations, and then there was after. And in the before times, inclusivity just wasn't as much of a standard. And in the after times, it's more of a standard. And I absolutely love that. So I really wanted to love this. I want to love everything that comes out from Fenty. I want them to do well. And I do think that a lot of people have that relationship with this brand, which is great. And the products also tend to perform well. So those are many of the reasons that this product was widely reviewed. But for that reason, I don't feel like I need to give like the basic B part of the review, although I will be talking about my experience with it. I more want to tell you about my personal experience and my personal opinion of it. That's why I'm doing the question and answer style rather than like a deep dive into all the nitty gritty of like breaking down like the price per ounce and that kind of thing. The packaging is, I think I did kind of expect it to be small based on pictures that I'd seen. I could see someone being shocked by how small it is in person if they sort of just glanced at the picture and then didn't really put it together, didn't actually envision it. But like, this is how small it is. You know what I mean? Like it kind of, it's not as small as something like a credit card or something, but like, this is my like Google Pixel phone. And like, it's like half the size of my phone. What's something else that I can compare it to? Like, here's my Makeup Forever Ultra HD Concealer. And it's shorter than that. I think that as bottles of foundation go, it's kind of on the small side. But, you know, I recently tested the Sephora Best Skin Ever foundation. And actually even this it feels like a pretty small bottle of foundation, even this is taller than it. So yeah, it does have a kind of like eeny weeny teensy weensy feel, but it's cute. I'm not mad at it. I feel like at this point I've tried so many different kinds of makeup and I've handled so much different kinds of packaging. And I've also like examined the actual amount that's in stuff on so many different bottles that I've learned that the feeling of the size of a package is a total illusion. There can be a jar that feels like a huge hulking jar of cream, and then it's just 1 ounce. And then you get like this tiny little, I don't know, like eyedropper bottle of something. And that too is 1 ounce. And it's just like the way it's packaged, the amount of packaging, the bulk of the packaging. Usually the bulk of a piece of packaging says absolutely nothing about the cost per ounce and absolutely nothing about the amount of product that you're getting. So this is a little more than 1 ounce. I expected that I was buying 1 ounce of foundation when it arrived. I enjoyed the teeny weeny feeling of this thing. And I still knew that I had bought 1 ounce of foundation and it didn't really affect me at all. Design wise, I'm really into this. I think it's adorbs. And I really like how it has this like faceted feeling. It's very modern and also fun, very Fenty. I'm here for it. So in terms of presentation, Fenty delivered everything that I've come to expect from Fenty. The color, that was the biggest question for me actually, because, you know, the description says that it's flexible shades for all. Often flexible shades in a skin tint means that the lightest shade isn't going to work for me, because even if something's sheer, if it's sheer but it's darker than my skin, it's still going to make my skin look darker. I can wear something that's sheer that's lighter than my skin and not a perfect match, or if it's about the same lightness as my skin, but it's not a super good match in terms of undertone. If it's kind of sheer, then flexible shades will work for me. But flexible shade, it doesn't work in the direction of like working for a skin tone that's much lighter than the product. So I was delighted to find, and I did already talk about this on camera because I applied this product on camera in a different video. I was delighted to find that the shade is actually great for me, and I'll swatch it right now next to a number of my other base products so that you can see, but I'll also link that video below so you can see me like applying it. And in that video, I applied it to half my face in 1 layer, and then I applied a second layer to half my face so you can really see the difference between my bare skin and the product at a distance. So there's a drop of the Fenty Ease Drop on my arm. It's in the shade 1, the lightest shade, and it's pretty liquidy, as you can see. It's not so liquidy that it's like running all the way down my arm, and this is a pretty tiny drop. If I had put more there, it would be running down my arm, but it is starting to sort of drop a little bit. So you can see right away that's a great shade for me, right? Because it looks pretty neutral. It's not popping as like very pink on my arm, and it's also not popping as like really yellow or like ochre undertoned or even peach. It looks pretty neutral, and it definitely looks bright enough to like brighten and even my skin, which it is. Underneath it there is the Makeup Forever Ultra HD in the shade Pearl, which is a really good brightening concealer on me. And you can see that they are really pretty similar. The Fenty Ease Drop in shade 1 is just a little bit deeper and maybe like a little bit more yellow, but in that way it's probably a better all over the face color for me than the concealer, which is again really, really brightening. If I put this concealer all over my face, it would kind of look like a white mask on me. There is a dot underneath there of the Sephora Best Skin Ever foundation, which I have been trying recently and I'm really enjoying. And this is in the shade 03P, which is the lightest shade of this. And I left the dot there to begin with so that you can see how much creamier and thicker it is. This is a much thicker product than the Fenty. So that's brighter than both of those. It's like whiter and less yellow. So in that way, technically you could say it's more cool toned, and indeed it is supposed to be pink. It's, 03P. It's supposed to be cool toned, but I don't find that it reads pink on me. I just find that it reads like really bright. You can see like it's the brightest and whitest of the three. This is the lightest shade of the Morphe 2 Hint Hint Skin Tint, which is the most liquidy of everything. It's already running down my arm. And I feel like it's reading as more peach, like more pink and more peach and darker. Definitely than the Sephora one, and maybe even than the Fenty. It's about the same as the Fenty in terms of how dark it is, but it's more peach and less yellow. So the Fenty one is kind of running yellow in these comparison swatches, which is good because I'm quite pale, quite neutral, but if anything, I lean a little bit warm. So the point of those swatches wasn't necessarily to like reveal all about the exact shade, but just to make the point that it's pretty much on par in terms of its neutrality. It's relatively on par in terms of its neutrality and its lightness of shade with my other foundation products that work for me. And even though the undertones vary a little bit, because these all tend to either be quite sheer products or products that I sheer out or that I use really sheer layers of, I can make them all work. And so in terms of the color, when this arrived and I started swatching it and I saw that, I knew that color-wise, I would be able to make it work. I also did kind of get into the question of what the texture is like when I had the drop up on my arm, and it wasn't quite running down my arm, but it would have if I had put more there. It's more liquidy than creamy, but it doesn't feel super, super thin. It doesn't feel lotiony. This is kind of like my main question. I think with something called Ease Drop, it's like we knew that it wasn't going to be a cream. We knew that it wasn't going to have stiff peaks. You know what I mean? I was wondering whether it would be kind of lotiony, like the skin tint from ColourPop that I didn't really get along with well, because it felt like pigment just suspended in lotion, and it would just like rub away and like lotion itself away when I rubbed it in. This definitely feels more like the Morphe 2 Hint Hint Skin Tint, more like pigment suspended in some sort of fluid, but not quite as fluid, again, as the Morphe one, and maybe not quite as fluid as I expected it to be. It has a little bit more body than I expected it to have. When I apply it, often what I do is to take the dropper bottle and squeeze like a line out like that. And even with a pretty thick line of it, it's not as though it drips all the way down. It just slowly starts to spread a tiny bit down. Even if I leave it for like a minute or two, the line will pretty much stay intact. So I would say it has a little more body than I expected it to have when it's first squeezed out of the packaging. So up until this point, it's all been pretty positive. The packaging totally delivered. The color really delivered. Like, I think that the color is really beautiful and works really well for me. The texture is really lovely. I like that. I like that it felt kind of like liquidy, almost serum-y, but I knew that it was going to be more of like a blurring matte. And I think that that's probably the thing that caused me to want to review this. If it had just been another like super skin-like, but like dewy finish skin tint, I feel like there are so many dewy finish skin tints out there right now, but it essentially was promising to have like the natural finish and the ease of application of a skin tint or of something more lightweight, but then to give you a more blurred and a little bit of a matte finish. That really allured me. And that's kind of why I decided, I mean, that and the fact that a lot of you wanted me to review it, you know, those two things together caused me to decide to finally do it. So unfortunately, for the second half of these questions, application process, well, maybe not finish and look. Yeah, all of it. Application process, the finish of it, the look of it, and the wear. It's like all downhill from there. The application process is where the challenges begin. And I articulated this in that other video when I was applying it, and I'll sort of say it again now, but with like another week and a half of experimenting with it underneath my belt. When you first rub it in, it's like it rubs away and clings to dry patches. That's been my experience. And my skin has been a little bit extra dry lately, but I have really worked to make sure that I moisturized, did some exfoliating. I have tested this a number of times on skin that didn't have visible dry patches and would have, you know, gone beautifully with any other, like a skin prep that would have made makeup application go beautifully, and still found it's like it picks up not only on any dry patches, but on pores and on like little peach fuzz and like hairs. And it's like it adds texture. That was my experience. And I found that the worst way to apply it was with the hands. Like when I applied it with the hands, it was almost like I was just rubbing it into my pores, and it would like fill, and I don't have like giant pores or something like that. I'm not over here using pore filling primers. I mean, everyone has visible pores pretty much, you know, but pores aren't one of like my main skin battles, you know, but they were with this. I would rub it in, and it looked like I had like a road, there was like a road full of potholes, and I had like filled the potholes with white icing and then just like spackled, like run like a big spackle thing over it. It was just like my skin, my bare skin with all of my pores spackled full of bright white product. And it didn't look good. And it like my skin still looked like its same sort of red raw self. And then my pores were standing out like dots. That happened when I was applying it on camera. And then I went in again with a second layer, and the second layer did help to even it out because the second layer stuck to the rest of my face and, was a little bit more effective, and it ended up looking pretty even and ended up looking fantastic on camera. And it is a foundation that looks good on camera. I think probably because of that like blurring matte quality, it sort of like diffuses the light and reflects back. And I thought my skin looked really beautiful in the footage from that application video. And I'm wearing it today, but in person, it just doesn't look good. I haven't been able to get it successfully to look good in person at all. Like not a single time. Every time I feel like I look like I'm wearing a lot of makeup and that I have really dry skin underneath it, even when my skin isn't that dry. I did find that it worked better with a brush, except that it tended to be kind of streaky. So it would work better with a brush because I would get more of a full coverage application, just like spreading the product around with a brush than I was getting rubbing it in with my hands. But the brush would like draw lines through it in the same, like for the same reason that it did that sort of spackling my pores thing when I was using my hands. So I would be like spreading it around with a brush and it would be leaving lines, leaving streaks. The brush bristles would be leaving streaks. And so then I would be like softly going back softer and softer, more and more delicate, and just gently trying to erase those streaks and just gently buffing softer and softer. And finally, with the most delicate of strokes, I could finally get it so that it was pretty even and all of those lines of the brush application were like buffed away. Then if I went back to put another layer on top, which I kind of had to do to get anything resembling like coverage for my redness, all those lines would immediately come back again. Like it doesn't really set. And so then I'd start rubbing in the second layer and it would just be like lines again. And the second layer would like mix with the first layer and all the lines would be back again. And so then I would have to again softly I had to baby it and just ever so gently with feather light strokes, and also taking a ton of time and care to gently erase all of those streaks out of it. So the brush application ended up looking better in the long run than the hands application, but it also wasn't great. I don't really use sponges anymore to apply my makeup. It just feels fussy to me. Without having tried it, I think I can safely and confidently tell you that the sponge is the way with this. Like if you want to get this and you want to make it work for you, I would bet, judging by how it went for me with my hands and with a brush, I think probably a sponge is going to be the best way. I'm basing that not just on process of elimination, but on like how the formula feels and how it was to apply. I think it probably will work way better with a sponge, but I only ever use my hands and use a brush, and I'm giving you like my answers to the questions that I had about it. So my questions are like, how does it work with the hands? How does it work with the brush? And the answer to both of the questions is not that well. So that's been my experience of the application process. Every time I did it, I fussed with it and babied it, and then would finally get it looking, like relatively even. But then I would still need to go in and spot conceal because I have some healing blemishes and I've had some blemishes, and it's a tint. Ultimately, it's like light to medium coverage. I didn't expect it to give me full coverage. And when I'm not over here complaining that like the coverage wasn't full coverage, because I expected to have to spot conceal. I wasn't out here trying to get it to be full coverage. I just was trying to get it to not have streaks in it. I was trying to get the application to be an even spread, like an even layer that didn't look patchy and didn't look streaky. And that's what I was having to baby it to get it to do. But then I would need to go back and do some spot concealing. The thing that really makes it untenable for me is how impossible it is to do anything else to my face without totally disturbing this base, even after quite a long time. Like there were a couple times when I applied it and then I like did a bunch of other stuff. Like I would apply it and then leave it and then do like my eye makeup, browse, hang out, do stuff. And then I'd go back to spot conceal and just the slightest touch of like the side of my finger on it, and it would pick up completely and leave like this nearly bare patch. It's so easy to disturb. You can't touch your face when it's on. And then I would be like spot concealing, and the spot conceal would be picking up the product from underneath. I could cover my blemishes by applying new product on top, but it was at the total expense of every bit of product that was like around that area. It also created problems in terms of like applying lip product. So usually I'll apply my base and then I'll go back and just make sure that there's no base product still on my lips or on my lip line. And I'll often like run my finger along my lip line a little bit on my upper lip to kind of fade any base product that's on my upper lip, to just fade it out into nothing on my lip so that I can overline a little bit. And it's like everywhere that the edge of my finger touched, it completely picked up. So just gently rubbing the lip line on the top of my lip, I was left with this very stark kind of raw line. So I played around with powdering it. I've been powdering it down quite a bit actually to try to get it to be more sturdy, but even that barely helps. It feels like a really thin liquid that's just sitting on the skin. And for something that's claiming to be blurring and skin-like, and therefore like not dewy, like I wouldn't be as surprised, or maybe even wouldn't be as frustrated if it were a dewy product, because I feel like a lot of dewy skin products continue to serve dewiness throughout the day by not setting down. Like they stay wet, kind of, they stay emollient, and that's why they are dewy. And so I've kind of come to expect that from dewy products. But this is a blurring and kind of matte product. It is a very beautiful sort of skin-like blurry finish. Again, looks great on camera, but it's not dewy. So I was kind of optimistic about its longevity, but it behaves in every way like the dewiest of dewy skin tints. The kind of thing where if you were to talk on your phone, you'd take the thing away and your phone would just have like this print all over it of product, and there would also be a phone-shaped print on your face from where your phone removed all the product. That's how it behaves. And I found it very frustrating when trying to complete my makeup. I was constantly accidentally picking up product from my face here and there, partly from just brush if I accidentally touched my face, but I use my fingers a lot. You know what I mean? I go in and I kind of like pat product around and move product around with my fingers all the time. And every time I touched the pad of my fingers to my face anywhere, it would pick up the product completely. That's the thing that made me realize that unfortunately I was going to give this like a full-on thumbs down for my review, because, you know, my channel budget bought this for me to do a self-sponsored review of it. So it's not like the money came out of my Hannah Louise Poston's bank account, you know what I mean? So it's sort of no skin off my nose, you know what I mean? Like I just have it for review. But part of me was hoping that I would really love it, especially when I saw that the color would work well and that I would be able to get some use out of it. But I'm not. I'm gonna give it away. I'm never gonna wear it again after today. It's so much more trouble than it's worth. Okay, so the next question, so that's I'm talking about application process. I've blurred all of the, I have blurred all of the three final questions together. So I feel like I covered application process, talking about hands and brush. And then I just talked about wear. I got straight into raving about the wear. I guess that was ranting about how it just feels like the wear time is like non-existent and the wear is really terrible. Like the wear of the product, the longevity is so bad that I couldn't get it to last properly, even through the time it took me to apply the rest of my makeup. Continuing to put makeup on top of this product made it give up the ghost and was a challenge to its longevity. So I think the one that I haven't been super thorough about is the finish, the look. I've indicated that I do think that it's quite beautiful on camera, looks really good. It does have that blurring quality. And I did also indicate that it just looks way worse in person than it looks on camera. And that is because of how it clings, how it highlights imperfections, clings to dry patches, to pores, to peach fuzz. The finish of it is just not one of a product that has become one with the skin or has put like a sheer wash of tinting color over the skin. You know what I mean? I mean, it's a blurring skin tint. That's how they're advertising it. So what I'm looking for is a sheer wash of color to tint the skin. And for me, that means like tinting away, shading away some of the redness that I have and making my skin more even, but that it kind of becomes one with the skin rather than looking like makeup on the skin. Like that's what I want from a tint. I feel like when you say tint in makeup, that's what you're talking about. A tint for the eyes, it looks like your skin, but it has changed the color, just like with a wash of color. And a tint for the lips is that. It's like a watery tint, right? It still just looks like your lip skin, but it's tinted it, as opposed to a lipstick, which looks like a physical product on top of the skin. And there's no way to get it to not look like a physical product on top of the skin. That quality of this combined with the, for me, pretty much non-existent wear time, like how incredibly frustrating and finicky it was to get it to just be on my skin and stay, that's what makes it like a solid no from me. The thing that I just want to say, the one caveat that I just want to give, because that's basically it. I'm like, it's a no, you know? But the caveat that I want to give is that I do have quite dry skin. I think I'm getting into like the mature skin range, right? I'm 36. So I do have some fine lines. My skin is starting to develop just some of the texture of not the first flush of youth. You know what I mean? I don't have like the crepiness that I think some women start to deal with. Some people, not just women, but like some people of all genders start to deal with getting into like maybe the 40s, 50s, 60s and above, you know? So it's not quite like mature skin in that way, but skin that is in its like flush of youth, like truly youthful skin, tends to take product more easily than skin in like the 30s, you know? And my skin is starting to be that kind of skin that it's just a little bit more of a challenge. So I do want to put that out there. I think that if I were much, much younger, maybe this would have worked better for me. Maybe it wouldn't have honestly looked so bad. And then the wear time, I can't imagine the wear time not being an issue. I haven't really watched any other reviews of this, by the way. I've seen that there are a lot of them out there, but I haven't really like tried to gather data from other people. I'm just giving you my experience. But it would be interesting to know if there are people who haven't had the wear time issue that I've had with this, because I feel like it's just impossible, like to get it to stick and to get it to set. The age of my skin, that's one thing. The dryness of my skin is another. I have pretty dry skin. I'm also adjusting to a Curology subscription with tretinoin in it. My skin's pretty well adjusted at this point. I'm not dealing with like a lot of flaking and peeling or anything like that, but I do have dry skin. You know, I'm a person with dry skin, so I don't have oily skin. And it might be that this product would be a way better fit for like a young person with oily skin. So if you had like really like no fine lines, absolutely no dryness or flakiness or crepiness, and you had your skin really producing oil all the time, and so keeping like a suppleness to the surface of the skin all the time, that would maybe combat the way in which this can like easily look cakey or look like it's sitting on the skin. I don't know. I'm just saying that like maybe that's the demographic for whom this is perfect. And maybe there is a demographic for whom this is perfect. And it's just like the literal opposite of me. And what I would also say about that is that I think that that demographic should also include having already quite good skin. Like I think that another thing that made it hard for me to make this work is that I do have blemishes and I have scars. So when I apply a skin tint, it's not my last step. I'm not just applying a skin tint and then going out the door and like looking good and feeling gorgeous. I'm applying a skin tint to neutralize my redness and even out the parts of my skin that are looking pretty decent. And then I'm going back to spot conceal the blemishes that you can still see through the tint. If you are like in your late teens with normal to oily skin with no blemishes, and you're just looking for something to like drop on your skin and rub in and go, then maybe this would work for you in a way that is completely different from the experience that I had. And maybe it will be great for you. So that's pretty much it. I know that this was kind of a laid back review in that I didn't like do a ton of application footage and give you a bunch of close-up swatches and all of this stuff. But that is because to me, it's a pretty simple review, which is that just because of the nature of the liquid that's in this bottle, it isn't something that is going to work for me. And I feel like it was more important for me to tell you why. I hope that that's okay and that it didn't disappoint people who are out there looking for information about this product. And no matter what, no matter why you watched this, and no matter how it was for you, I hope, or no matter how it was for you information-wise, I hope that it was enjoyable to spend this time for me, enjoyable for you to spend this time with me. It was certainly enjoyable for me to spend this time with you. More than any of that garbled mess, I hope that you are remembering to take extra good care of yourself this week so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.